The fundamental curative experience of the human being, vis-a-vis the traumatic experience of the child, is a rebirth, a return to the original and innate disposition which, due to the contingencies of the upbringing, were kept from life. Psychological regression, which is subsequent to the realization of the need for this return, is the cornerstone of therapeutic work. The decisive factor of the therapy is time. The known religio-organic rebirth is conditioned on biopsychological determinism, that is, God's sovereignty, which is a lengthy and collective process occasioned by the life trauma of a man who is called Jesus of Nazareth. The birth trauma is constellated in the telling and retelling of the crucifixion of the Lamb. The experience of this highest trauma, which is so from a sociological and historical perspective, abreacts the rebirth of the individual in proximity to it. It is and was simply the overwhelming fear of death, the utter destruction of the accumulation of social and individualistic will, the lowering of consciousness and death of the systems of adaptation, permits the breaking in, through abreaction, of the fundamental unit of the human being, namely the transcendental condition of its consciousness or spirit, which has historically been experienced as divinity itself. Through the ages, the reliance on the historical narrative approach, which was the quintessential playing out of this process, was gradually internalized, where the historical traumatic model exteriorized the spirit as a traumatic abreaction. The psychological Gnostic model internalizes the trauma as a means of avoiding the persecutory precondition. Persecution became self-persecution, the withdrawal of projection, such that the spirit was offered to the world rather than expected from it. We see already the limitations of both models, the former in the persecution, the latter in a denial of life. However, the death traumatic production of the abreacted spirit gradually became the continual recognition of the presence of this spirit in the prosaic and mundane. We notice as a historical matter that the death traumatic production of the spirit is limited in its application. The gradual recognition by the scientific mind that the spirit is a real phenomenon, first demonstrated by the most cruel and unconscious procedure that is the crucifixion, gave way to its harnessing, as though an object of science in enforced technological application. This most simply is the transition of the religious to the psychological. Where the Christian description of the spirit is detailed in St. Paul, the psychological, we might think, is in Jung. Yet we try further to not only know the spirit through Christian trauma production, or to use the spirit in a psychological harnessing, but to affirmatively elicit it. Here then enters the psycholytic and psychedelic therapies, which we cannot properly call psychological. The Christian procedure elicits the spirit through the drawn-out process of discipline and results in a life-altering trajectory. It is stuck, however, in a state of primal union, in the utopian church as perennial womb. The psychological procedure harnesses the spirit, but it's forever held in a state of labor without the possibility of genuine rebirth. The appearance of psychedelic intoxication, however, is an ecstatic birth of the new child into the social milieu that has given up on rebirth as either 1. The trauma production, or 2. The projective psychological labor model. The prevailing material medical paradigm is a recapitulation of this two-part impossibility, but now serves as the womb of labor, standing ready to birth the mysterium of psychedelic consciousness as the dominant mythologium. The most fundamental contribution to this mythologium was the long suffering of the patient who, in decades past, undertook the trial of LSD treatment, a procedure so profound and world-shattering that there was no religious or psychological preparation that could ready one for its incursion into life. It's a profound exteriorization of the original hindering trauma. Just as the religious myth has served as the transitional object to psychoanalysis, the dream and the vision now serve as the transitional object to the psyche medical or the psychedelic medical. So what is it then, and how is it to be lived? The primary challenge to personal transformation is 1. The religious is unbelievable and limited to a lifelong historical symbol system, though it produces an enduring and epistemically defensible, if impotent, rebirth. 2. The psychoanalytic is more believable but long-going, time-consuming, and expensive, though it produces a stable, yet obstructed outcome that are only partly revelatory. 3. The psychedelic is the least rigorous epistemically, short-lasting, and as of today, illegal. It produces variable outcomes that have major epistemic challenges. Yet it is the natural progression from God to archetype to psyche itself.